Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Modern Woman podcast. This is series 1 where we talk about everything menopause. Today we have two best friends, Sue and Laura, coming in to speak about their menopause journeys so far. Hope you enjoy.
So, firstly, what age did you start to realise you were coming into the stages of menopause, and did you feel like there were outlets you could turn to when you started to experience changes?
I would say late 40s, early 50s. And I was kind of looking out for it at that stage anyway, because I'd heard that your cycle is similar to your mum, and I know that my mum started when she was 50.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
Said, so. And as far as not professional outlets, but just talking to friends.
Well, yeah, we was talking to each other really, wasn't it? Mine was late 40s, early 50s, but I didn't know what I was supposed to be looking for. I didn't know what.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I thought, and I've heard other people say this as well, the early symptoms, brain fog and being on the verge of tears the whole time. A friend of mine actually said she went to the doctor and she said, I've either got a brain tumour or early onset Alzheimer's, because it feels like those kind of symptoms. You can't remember anything, you're struggling to find the word that you're trying to say, can't handle pressure at work that you used to.
But because there's nothing, well, there certainly wasn't when we first started, there was nothing really to guide you apart from maybe the odd books if you went to W.H. Smith. But I was thinking, all I used to hear years ago was when people went through the change, is what they used to always call it, is that it was just like this really terrible thing. So I was thinking, well, is it the menopause? Because I've not collapsed on the floor or anything like that. But it was the hot sweats really at night that I first really sort of noticed. And I still have that now, and that's 4 years later. And it's like, well, when does that end? But do I go and get something to help it, or do I carry on as I am? Because I don't know if I'll be worse by taking tablets.
Yeah. Is it really worth going to the doctors or anything they can do? Or should I just put up with it and it'll go away at some stage?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you remember the first time you heard the word perimenopause?
Was that talking to each other really? No. I did go to the doctor, and I was maybe 2 months. I'd maybe not had periods for 2 to 3 months. No, maybe slightly longer. And the doctor said to me, "Oh, I think you're going through the perimenopause." And I said, "What's that?" And she said, "Oh, it's not. You've not gone through the menopause, but it's the period before that." And so I said, "Oh, well, can I take something to help?" And she said, "Oh no, we won't do anything until you've stopped having periods for at least 7 months." And so I was just sent away, and I've never gone back since, because there don't seem to be. If there was a specialist at the doctor's, that would be great, but because it's just a general thing, I feel as if because I'm not actually poorly that I shouldn't go back really.
Yeah, and it's something that everybody's going to go through. Yeah, there's a massive element of just shut up about it and it'll go away.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I feel so. I feel that if my husband went through the menopause, it would have been sorted years ago.
Yeah, there'd be a pill for that.
How did the beginning of your menopause journey affect you as a person?
I would say I noticed the first bad effects at work. Not being able to do what I used to be able to do. Really not being able to handle stress. Having to write everything down because I couldn't remember anything. Not trusting myself to be able to take on anything new, or be able to retain any more information. I would say that was where it started, and then of course that leads into your relationships, and your partners,
I'd say mine
being grumpy, irritable, flicking like that from being fine to being raging,
When you can feel it, I could feel myself feeling offhand, feeling annoyed,
and
even
knowing
though
that
there
you were being
wasn't,
unreasonable,
but not being able to do anything about it.
Yeah.
I knew I was being unreasonable, but I couldn't change what I was saying or feeling.
Yeah.
I knew I was being unreasonable, but it was there. And getting really teary about things, about silly things, and feeling emotional about silly things.
Crying at adverts.
Yeah, yeah. And trying to explain a little, but I mean, obviously, my husband was getting annoyed about me being off with him, and I couldn't really explain why.
So that leads into the next question of how did the beginning of your menopause journey affect relationships?
Yeah, well, not in a good way. There's nothing good about it, really. But yeah, certainly lack of libido. You know, feeling like, God, if I never have sex again, I don't care. Yeah, go away, leave me alone. Don't even look at me, leave alone touch me. Feeling like that a lot.
Yeah. And we've both discussed that a lot, haven't we? And it's, in lots of ways, you feel, I don't know, you feel as if you're so different to how you used to be.
Yeah.
I feel as if everybody just thinks, oh, well, she's past it now.
Yeah, it's a very ageing process.
It is. And obviously, I feel as if I put a lot of weight on my tummy, so I don't feel confident anymore in how I look or how I dress. So that's got another reaction with your partner, because you're even more reserved. Apart from not having any libido, you're even more reserved with them because you haven't got the same confidence.
Dressing more frumpily. Simon's, says, you don't have to wear all this big baggy clothing, but the thought of wearing anything that I used to wear.
Well, yeah, it does. It massively affects, I think, your relationship.
What do you think would have helped improve the negative effects that come with menopause?
Knowing about it sooner, I think.
Yeah.
If I'd known when I was, say, 45, what sort of things to expect, rather than just hearing from probably my mother, that I don't think she can remember having a menopause.
Yeah, my mum can't tell me of any of the symptoms that she
I just have gone from hearing things, I don't know whether it's been on the TV years ago or whatever, that is just really bad. You go through the menopause and it's really bad. So because it wasn't really bad, that, as I say, something really bad didn't happen to me, it would have been good at age 45 to have the knowledge of when you're getting hot sweats, when you're feeling off it, when your libido goes, that it is normal, and what you can maybe do about it. I still don't know what to do about it.
It would have been helpful to think, well, right, this is going to happen, but then to know that there's something that can be done about it, because I don't feel really that, certainly not for perimenopause, there's anything that can be done. You really do have to sit it out until they know your periods have stopped, and then they can put you on HRT. But prior to that, which can be
a
years,
long time,
so you're putting up with it for years. And then even when you do go to the doctor, you don't feel like they really know what they're talking about, because I don't think they do, because they don't study it at
they don't.
medical school.
And I don't know about if you're in London, but certainly in Harrogate, I don't think there's a specialist that you go to, and if there is, we don't know where they are, and then you'd have to pay for it. Yeah. But I would like to know if there was something that would help, with all the different symptoms, etc. And not feeling, is there something that helps with the weight that you put on because of now I've read up a bit more about it. It's apparently the lack of estrogen that's in your system now, that's why you put the middle-aged spread on. But is there anything you can do about it? Or if I went to the doctor and pushed to go on HRT, whether they would give me it, but whether that would make me feel any better or make me feel worse or whatever. So you do just put up with how you feel, really. And the trouble is, anything that I get now, if I get a bit muddled or aches and pains or pains in my toes, I think, oh, well, it must be the menopause, which probably most of the time it maybe is. But if there was seriously something matters somewhere else, you're thinking, oh, well, it's just the menopause, because we don't know enough about it, and there's nowhere to go to find anything about it.
Do you think if you were more educated, you'd be able to educate your own daughters on it when it came to that time, rather than it being something where you're constantly asking questions. If you were more educated, you'd be able to educate others yourself rather than...
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I feel that I've learned more about menopause through talking to friends.
Yeah.
Particularly, the girls and guys who they are so knowledgeable about it, and I've learned so much from talking to them. I don't know how they found out all that information, but they go to the doctors and they tell the doctor, right, this is what's happening to me, and this is what I want, and they kind of argue with the doctor. They know so much about it. It's amazing, and I don't. But also I feel there's no point trying to learn about it while you're going through it, because, as I've said, my symptoms are being able to retain information.
Yes, yeah.
I can't do it, so yeah, maybe we should all learn about it before it happens, so that we are.
Oh, I do. And once we, I would like to know more about it myself now, even though I don't know how far through I am with it, but then to be able to guide our daughters for when they're, so they know what to expect, which is what we would have liked to have known. We would have liked to have known what to expect from what was coming to us when you get into your, I mean, that's another thing. For us, it was our late 40s, early 50s. I know for some people it's a lot earlier, some people it's a lot later. But you do tend to put everything down to the menopause, like I say, and you don't know if it is or it isn't. But it would be good to actually know what symptoms to look out for and be able to explain to your daughters for when I don't want them having to be like us, just having to talk to each other saying, oh, well, you feel a lot better talking to a friend because you think, oh, well, it's not just me.
So what would you say to other women listening that are in a similar situation, or to friends, if you were going to give advice? What would you say? Do you have any?
I'd say really push it with a doctor. Be really insistent that they do something. They don't just brush you off. And I can't be alone in this scenario, but I don't anymore. But very recently, I had a coil in. So whenever I went to the doctor to complain about my symptoms, the question they would ask is, well, when did you last have a period? Well, I haven't had a period for years because I've got a coil in. And they just seemed to sort of draw a blank there. Oh, well, we don't really know then. When are you through it and you're not through it. But I can't be the only one that was in that scenario.
But you see, I've read in magazines that you can have a blood test to see how far you are in your perimenopause or whatever, or your menopause. But when I asked the doctor when I went, they said, oh, it's not accurate, we can't do that. So is that a thing? Can you get to know? I mean, I know because I'm not on any pill or coil or anything. I know that I've been without periods now for probably about 18 months now. So I know I presume I've gone through the menopause, but I'm still getting the hot sweats, I'm still getting symptoms. I've obviously still got the uncomfortable
and it'd be
tummy
nice to know if that is going to go away.
But is that for the rest of
Surely
my life? Is my tummy always going to feel this bloated and uncomfortable? Or does that eventually go? But who do we ask? Because I'm not going to go. You feel bad going to the doctor. For a start, you can't really go to the doctors now because of the COVID. And if the receptionist wants to know what's what, and then when you get to the doctor, you feel as if you're taking up somebody else's time. That's more important. That might have something that's like a cancer scare or whatever. So you feel that you're in a bracket that it shouldn't really bother the doctor with something like that. I feel there should be a specialist doctor that just deals with menopause and women's problems that you could go to, because their surgery would be really busy.
So obviously you both were going through peri or just menopause during COVID. Did that have a bigger effect going through menopause while also dealing with a pandemic?
It probably did, yeah. I certainly wouldn't have bothered a doctor about it.
Oh no, well no, from that side, in everyday life I found it easier working from home than getting up, getting ready, going to the office, driving, rushing
COVID
about doing.
Did take away some of the stresses of life, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah. So from that side of things, it made life easier because you didn't have to do so many jobs under one hat of one person type thing. But as for going to the doctors, definitely not.
No, I wouldn't have done that. And of course, you couldn't see your friends so much. I suppose nothing to stop you chatting on the phone. But for people that maybe don't have a relationship with someone where they can talk openly, that must be really difficult.
Oh no.
That must be really, really difficult.
Yeah.
Because I would say I've learned 90% of what I know from
Or
just talking
friends.
to friends.
Yeah. And we can easily, openly talk to each other about it. How we feel when we feel upset, lack of libido with our other halves, which a lot of ladies won't want to talk about, even with a best friend. They would feel embarrassed. But we've at least been able to do that with each other, and it does make you feel better when you can discuss it with somebody else. But there will be a lot of people in the position that don't want to talk to, and talking to a professional that could give you answers, they would feel better talking to them. But we don't know where these people are, do we?
Yeah, it is treated with a dose of humour, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, again, TikTok. You know, you've got the men making recordings about, oh God, you know, she's going through the menopause. You know, be careful and making light of it, which is fine. But
I mean, we know, and we laugh about it. We say, oh well, it must be the menopause. I put everything down to the menopause. But I do think that as much as girls should be educated, so that, like we said, we wanted to know what's going to be going on with our bodies. Girls need to know, maybe at school age, of what you learn about periods now, they need to learn about later. And boys need to understand women as well, because, you know, my husband is a bit like, it must be the menopause, and he didn't understand. He sort of took it personally when, you know, your lack of libido.
To even say that word,
it's just like, well, is there something matter with me? And it's like, no, and then you talk less, and then that situation gets worse. With the kids, I know you fly, you know, I've flown off the handle, and, you know, kids sort of looking at us and say, what is the matter with her? I only asked what we're having for tea. And I think people need to understand more that all have to understand girls going through teenage life. You sort of think, oh well, they're a teenager, she's got strop A, and
that's a really good comparison.
You give a leeway to them, but nobody gives leeway to us. And then when we're forgetful, it's just like, oh my God, she's going crazy. But it is all, when you read about it, is all part of the symptoms. And I think your children and your husbands or you know, partners need to understand more how
it's going to happen to 50% of the population. There needs to be more known about it.
Exactly. Yeah, it does. Yeah, definitely.
So obviously now that mental health is becoming, you know, a big topic that people are talking on, and people are starting to understand that understanding symptoms of depression, or they're really tired, or they can't do anything, or they can't get out of bed because of depression, or they don't want to be in a social setting because of anxiety and stuff. That's sort of been coming more to life now, and people are understanding the symptoms and what to look for. And
able to talk about it. I talk about it in the office. You know, there's only me, Simon, and David, but I use the word. I say menopause. You know,
wouldn't have done a few years ago.
No, I wouldn't have done a few years ago. And it is definitely talked about.
Yeah,
more,
it is. And that programme that was on
McCall,
TV, that was really good.
Yeah.
That programme was.
People
I
like that
made
talking
my
about
husband watch it.
Yeah, it's definitely. Well, it's the way of the world, isn't it? Everything is talked about.
Because when I was going to watch it, James was just like, oh, well, I'll go and sit in the other room. It's like, no, you're watching it with me. And I don't suppose he found it as interesting as me, but I think it did open his eyes that, oh no, it's not just, I think he thought it was just me that was going through it.
Yeah.
And all the women were saying exactly the same things about loss of libido, brain fog, putting on weight, etc., etc. And I think men do need to, but
they need to know that we're not unusual.
No, it is the norm. We are the norm. And the more it's on the TV, the more is in magazines, the better it will be for future generations, that girls and boys will be able to talk about it and not feel that it's a taboo subject. Yeah, I do feel better being able to mention it now. Like when you say it, you know, men do. They're not quite so much like, oh, I don't really want to know about that. We're making them having to know about it.
Thank you very much, ladies. That's been very helpful. I hope the listeners at home have related to you and can feel more comfortable in talking to their friends. And thank you for being on this podcast with me.